Rupert in Cornwall was packed off to boarding school. Then, for the next year or so, the children's grandmother juggled the interviewing of servants, the demands of her abandoned husband, Peter's rages, Clarry's teething, and their father's total lack of interest. "He's grieving," suggested Miss Vane, who lived across the road. "No, he isn't," said the children's grandmother robustly. "Then the poor man is still in shock." "Selfish," said the children's grandmother. "Also spoiled. I spoiled both my boys, and now I suffer the consequences." "Mrs. Penrose!" exclaimed Miss Vane. "Spoiled, selfish, immature, and irresponsible," continued the children's grandmother. Miss Vane laughed nervously and said that dear Mrs. Penrose had a very droll sense of humour. "If you insist," said the children's grandmother as she wiped Clarry's chin for the 100th time that afternoon and removed Peter from the coal scuttle. She considered it a great relief when a few days later she heard that her abandoned husband had caught pneumonia. "There's no one in Cornwall that I trust to be capable of nursing him," she told the children's father. "Clarry is walking and almost talking. Peter is quite able to manage by himself. I have found you an excellent general servant who is fond of children, and I absolutely must go home." Then, despite Clarry's startled eyes, Peter's wails of come back, Grandma, 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 Grandma," and their father's outraged disbelief, she hurried off to Cornwall, by way of horse-drawn cab, steam train, and pony trap. Fortunately for Peter and Clarry, and their despairing parent, in those days almost everybody was either a servant or employed servants themselves. They were a part of life. Over the next few years, the children were cared for by one after another of a long stream of grumbling, hurrying, short-tempered, tired and underpaid women who trundled, stomped, tiptoed and bustled through the house. They swept carpets with brooms, boiled puddings in saucepans, washed their charges' hands with hard yellow soap and their faces with the corners of aprons, carried coals, cleared ashes, fried chops, mopped tiles, polished shoes, chased away cats and pigeons, jerked hairbrushes through tangles, made stale bread and milk suppers, shook dust from rugs, sat down with sighs and rose with groans, irritated the children's father with every breath they took, and left as soon as they possibly could to find work that wasn't so hard. Inside the narrow house, the wallpaper faded, and the furniture became shabby, but the children grew and grew. Peter became such a nuisance that he was sent to a day school. There he was discovered to be extremely clever, which Miss Vane said probably accounted for his often shocking temper. Clarry was not a nuisance. She was brown-haired and round-faced and more or less happy. Miss Vane popped over the road to invite her to join a Sunday school class. "She doesn't believe in God," said 9-year-old Peter, who had answered the door. "I've told her he's not true, haven't I, Clarry?" Clarry, who had pushed under Peter's arm to smile at Miss Vane, nodded in agreement. "I think I would prefer to talk about this with your father," said Miss Vane. "Father wouldn't listen," said Peter, and then Mrs. Morgan, by far the most long-lasting servant, came hurrying over, dislodged Peter from the doorknob with a bat from a damp dishcloth, removed Clarry's thumb from her mouth, ordered, "Upstairs, the pair of you. You're forever where you're not wanted," and told Miss Vane that she was sure Mr. Penrose would be very pleased to have Clarry out of mischief for an hour or so on Sundays, and they'd send her across in something clean or as best as could be managed. And this was the beginning of Miss Vane's good deed and Christian duty of keeping an eye on the family, which was sometimes helpful and sometimes not, and often made Peter growl. "I dare say she's one of those people who need to make themselves feel useful," said the children's father to Mrs. Morgan. "She's offered to help sort out whatever it is the Clarry wears. Her grandmother can't be relied on, since she still insists on living in Cornwall. Miss Vane is harmless enough. I can't see why anyone should find the arrangement a problem." "She stands too close and she smells of cats," said Peter, after a particularly dreary Miss Vane afternoon. "Cat food," said Clarry fairly. "Liver. She boils it. She was boiling it when I went there for her to pin up the hem on my dress." Clarry sighed. Already she was suffering far more than Peter from their neighbour's helpfulness. Miss Vane took her for long, chilly walks, murmuring instructions about pleasant behaviour. She had knitted her an itchy striped scarf. And when Clarry's winter dress was scorched beyond repair by Mrs. Morgan drying it over the kitchen fire, Miss Vane had made a brand new one in hideous green and mustard tartan. Clarry had had to stand on a chair while Miss Vane jerked and pulled and stuck in dozens of pins. "The joins don't match and those brown buttons look awful," Peter had remarked the first time she'd worn it.